We are used to have vehicles that drive up to easily 200 kilometers per hour, and that easily can run for 600, 700, 900 kilometers. If you think of the energy that is in 1 liter of petrol, is the same energy that is, so 1 liter, let's say basically a little less than 1 kilo, is the same energy that is in 100 kilos of the best lithium battery today available in the market. So the size and the weight that you have to carry on your car and the accessibility to the energy completely changes when you start to talk about electric or hybrid cars. This gives to the engineers that develop the cars a completely different challenge. But not all the challenges can be overcome. What you learn very quickly is that you can do a car that runs at 300 kilometers per hour. I've done it. We've done a speed car, a record car that did the 300 and something. And you can easily have a car that runs 1,000 kilometers if you want. But you cannot have a car that does both. So all the concept change, and the offer that you can give to the public changes also. I think that we are in a moment in which we are like in the evolution of the spaces. Life has started in the sea, and what everybody is telling today is that there was an evolution, and through many steps we have birds. And there is a moment in which you go out of the sea and human beings started to fly. I think that we are really very much in that transition now. Electric car has been first standard cars, then they become hybrid cars, and now if you look at the evolution, for example, with the Toyota, with the Prius, now they are launching the first plug-in. And so the plug-in, I think, is really the edge between hybrid, seen as an electric motor that helps a standard engine, to an electric motor, an electric car that is helped by a standard engine. So we are really seeing this change, and for me, economically and technically, it's very interesting to see what has been happening in the last 3 or 4 years with the crisis. Before the crisis, we had a very high level of price of fuel. Everybody was starting to develop hybrid and electric. Then there was this big crisis worldwide. And in the crisis, everything became cheap, even the fuel. So for a few years, a couple of years, nobody was really talking about those things. And now we are back to reality. We are back in a situation in which the fuel is becoming more and more expensive. But this is a constant trend. It has nothing to see with Libya or what is happening in the Middle East or all over the world. A few years ago, I had a question. I had a question that really nobody could answer. And was, for how many years we are going to have fuel? So when is the day in which fuel will finish? So I took a couple of engineers, I put them on the internet and on the books, and said, okay, you find out this answer. Funny enough, there is no answer. We will never run out of fuel. Why? We will never run out of fuel, but the fuel will become more and more and more expensive, because there are still places where we can extract fuel, but the cost of extraction will become so expensive that other energies will become competitive. And this is a natural trend. Actually, when it gave me this answer, I really felt very stupid, because this is a trend in the human evolution. Things become more expensive or more cheap, and we use that more or we use them less. So we are really in this transition, and cost of fuel is going to increase, the cost of electricity and the availability of electricity is going to naturally to improve because there are a lot of investment, there are a lot of research, a lot of money spent in batteries and other sources. But there is also something else that is interesting and inherent in the technology of the electric cars, is that everybody thinks of the electric car as a whole. In fact, the electric car is a sum of systems in which the traction that is electric just need feed, but the feed is something that is completely separate. So all the work that today we are doing on the electric car is basically on providing the energy. And the big investment is on the battery side, because in itself, the electric traction is the easiest and most efficient things that you can think. I mean, we have it since 200 years. And if you look at the concept of the electric motor, it's very difficult to do something more efficient. It's probably one of the most efficient things you have. I want to go back 1 second to the 1 liter of fuel and 100 kilos. It's much worse than that, because when we go to the pump and we put 100 liters of fuel in our tank, what we do not understand is that out of this 100 liters, we literally throw away 60 liters. So actually, what we use to move is 1/3, is 30 out of 100. And when you start to think about those things to a world scale, it's absolutely stupid. So we must do something to change, and we are doing it. Going back to MOBI.E, what is, I think, what the real very interesting things that you have done and the idea behind. The electric car definitely needs support. The electric car needs an infrastructure. But don't forget that also the other cars have an infrastructure. If you take out 50% of the infrastructure of a fuel pump, you probably have hundreds of cars that are not going to be able to run on the road. So we already have an infrastructure, so we must not be scared of the infrastructure, because the advantage is that the standard cars had was that this was developed through hundreds of years, while here now we have to do an infrastructure much quicker. But we need an infrastructure as we have it on for the other cars. I think that Europe has a relation with the infrastructure, a culture about infrastructure that is much, much stronger than any other continent. And this is an incredible advantage. If you look at infrastructure in Europe, there is nothing in the world as the infrastructure in Europe, maybe Japan. But the vast infrastructure we have, and as infrastructure, I think about high-speed train, motorway, internet, everything, airport. We have a fantastic infrastructure in Europe. And so, because our mentality is very much a mentality, of our society is very much a society of integration of people. It's not a society like in US where it's the man to the frontier against nature and we have to, the man alone. The culture of Europe is people together. And this is, to me, fantastic. It's something which we have to build and we have to create value. So we have a right cultural approach to infrastructure. What we need to learn is how to use the infrastructure that we built and how to extract the maximum out of this infrastructure. What I think is fantastic of MOBI.E is the fact that it's a platform on which everybody can build something. And the latest thought about systemic approach to things, to life, said that the value is not much in the base, in the infrastructure. The value is in the million of contacts that you are able to create through the infrastructure. And the most valuable thing is the information. And when you start to think what you're doing, you have 1,300 points, I think, already. That is incredible for a country like a small country like Portugal. So it means that you have already covered all your country with this infrastructure. Every new car that comes in the system is going to be linked with this infrastructure and is going to exchange information with the infrastructure. And the value of this information is unbelievable because you are the first in a world in which nobody has information. The first month of sale of volts in US was 450 units. That is nothing. But those 450 units will increase, and those will start to go around, and all of the information that you are able to capture from this new product, let's say, or this revolutionary product, are vital for all the business in the world, because there is always something that I think. There are two things in which in our life probably covers, I think, 50 or 60% of our revenue, and our house and our cars. Those are the two things in which we spend more in our life. So we are talking of a huge amount of opportunities, and when I saw what you had in mind, I compared this to Facebook, to the iPad. Everybody, because it's an open source system, is going to be able to create his own app. So there are thousands of applications that you can build on an open source system that is also very much close to this systemic approach of putting a lot of different things together and to create a network that take life on its own and make value. They create value for the society and for the people. And just one last thing. I think that in this process, it's very, very important that this is partially, totally a public investment, because this creates a very, very sound platform. There are no hidden interests, because the interests are the one of the society and the countries. And I think on this, you are really one step ahead of anything else I've seen around the world.
So thank you. You mentioned that research and investment is mainly now on batteries. Well, that seems we have made a survey among 3,000 people, and that seems to be the main concern. It regards batteries and length and so. What can you tell people about that? What's the evolution that batteries length and is taking on?
I think that we are in a moment in which there is a demand. It's not clear the technology that will win, but what is lacking is not lacking. But what the critical part is are the investment. I mean, if I go back in again 1980, Mercedes showed a car. It was a Mercedes C-Class 180 and it was completely electric. Fantastic. They were using sulfur battery. Everybody in Europe would bet that sulfur battery would be in the future. Nowadays, nobody's talking about sulfur battery. Everybody's talking with lithium, etc. There are a lot of investment made in France from the Bolloré Group with the government to launch new battery technologies. My feeling is that the battery is a transition. Battery is something that it's when you look at the weight, it's very inefficient. It's a chemical thing. So we have to go to something else. If you ask me what, I don't know yet. But it's definitely a transition. We have to change what is after the electric motor. The electric motor will remain. We have to find what is the best for the cars, for the mobility, in terms of creating energy. There are a lot of, I think, ideas on development of engine, the use of other sort of chemical things, but it's very much up in the air. But now I think you start really to see a flow of investment that goes in that area. So I think in the next 10 years we will have a big
But you are sure that the electric car will remain, as you said? Because some people say, well, inevitably the electric car is the future. Other people say that, well, it may be the future. And other people say that it will never be the future because it's not the future, it's just futuristic.
I think that there is something that we need to understand very clearly, is that we are used to, and we are very confident in what we have, okay? And it is our cars. They run, they are quick, they don't break down. Okay. We have to change our habits. We have to do things differently, because we cannot continue to waste 60% of the energy that is not renewable every day, every kilometer that we drive. That is something that cannot last. Because, not because of the green thing, because it's going to cost too much. So we have to cut it. So what is the solution? I think the solution is not one solution. I think that we are going to see different solutions for different needs. So we are going to see cars developed for much more specific use, but more than cars, because we will not have the possibility to buy 5 cars. But there will be, I think, in the medium term, a different demand and offer, mainly offer, in terms of mobility. So our need is to go from A to B, is not to own a car. Okay? So we need, and the society need to allow us to move from A to B. So already, if you look at a huge scale, already, for example, internet has allowed us to move from A to B virtually. And everywhere now you see people talking about 3D. Okay? This helps again to move from A to B virtually. So from one side we have an offer to move less. And on the other side still need to be developed an offer to move differently. And to move differently is to combine different services in which the cars become one which is not the ultimate, but it is going to be one which.
Would you agree that although there's a social awareness regarding environment and mobility, it will be in the end just a cost-driven decision?
Absolutely.
So it always is. So that means that, well, oil prices are rising, but the EV costs must come down too.
I think that is, very frankly, I think that is absolutely not influential. I think that what we know is that the price of petrol will go up. And even if the price of EV stays the same, it will become competitive. It's just a question of time. It's just a question of when this shift will happen. And it's very interesting what happened during the crisis, because before the crisis was, let's go EV, let's go EV. Then was a crisis, we don't have money, don't talk about this. Now, it's again up the price. And so, I mean, Geneva, as you mentioned, Geneva was unbelievable. Geneva, there was only, all manufacturers, they had at least one hybrid car, if not an electric car. And you know what is the big difference? Is that in the 80s, there were electric car shows in the stand, but they were not true. Now the cars are true. Now the cars are there, you can buy them if you want. That's a big shift. Because looking from behind, we know how those cars were built. They were just prototypes in a shop. Okay, let's show that we have an electric car. But now they are true. They come out from a production facility.
So the EV doesn't need to enter the large scale production in order to be viable.
No, absolutely not.
Okay, one last question about the cars, because you mentioned that we have to change our habits. Do we have to stop having fun driving? You are an engineer. You have made cars that run 300 or more kilometers an hour.
No, but that is nothing. I don't want to take. If you want, I tell you something. The interesting things that we see, and a lot of thought that goes going through this, has nothing to see with the electric, but is a trend, a very strong trend. The cars now are the car market and the car product is exploding. It's like a firework. Okay.